So are you telling me you're trying to bring Sharia law to America?
Actually, I think that's good for America, which is protection of religion, this preservation of life, and then preservation of intellect, and preservation of wealth and property. That means the U.S. is on Sharia.
Alright. So, I wasn't here last week. Saw what you guys did. We got recognized outside the masjid, which I'm not doing this for fame, but that was pretty interesting.
It always feels great. Although they were asking where the tape brother was.
Yeah.
Where's that your tape?
Where's that your tape?
He's not here right now.
Exactly.
He's still remaining.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, small correction there we should bring up. Turns out he's not completely free.
The YouTube comment was right.
The YouTube comment was correct. He is not completely free. Rather, he is. There's some new case, and partially, actually, what you said was right. I've been following this kind of, and where they were exonerated and stuff like that. But there's actually a separate case against him in the UK for some kind of abuse charge, something like that. And then there is apparently another case. So now, currently, I don't know exactly this, but currently, Andrew Tate is under house arrest again. His brother, Tristan Tate, is under some kind of judicial review, something. I don't know what that means for him. But it looks like there's still some ongoing stuff, even within Romania, not just the EU, it looks like. Anyway, small correction there.
The other thing when you mentioned the ICC head.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean,
we made the offer.
We made the offer for Green Khan.
You can still make the
You can
offer.
still
You can still make the offer for someone, sure, but he's Ahmadi.
No, and I'll bring up a story. No, and
Oh,
this is important. Now that it's come up, actually, can we make dua, whether it's Ahmadi or not? In this case, general consensus, Ahmadis are not within the general fold of Islam. But I don't think it's relevant. Whether he was a Jew, Christian, atheist, if he's doing good, we can potentially even make dua for a person like that to enable him in this cause.
Rasulullah made a dua for one of the two Umars, right?
One of the two Umars. That's for them to convert. But
yeah, to convert.
No, let's talk about
Still a dua.
I think the better example is Mu'tawib bin Adi. He was the leadership of the Quraysh. He was a pagan. He died a pagan. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, even during his life, Mu'tawib was what's the right word? He acted righteously. He acted nobly. Let's put it that way, right? When the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had the worst of his life, he came back from Ta'if, right? He had no support in Mecca. Abu Lahab had withdrawn his protection. Mu'tawib bin Adi sent his kids to escort him in. And after his death, this was after the Battle of Badr. It's worth noting. After the Battle of Badr, when the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam took the prisoners of war, he ransomed them, right? He said each prisoner of war, depending on how much you can afford, they would be ransomed off, or they can educate 10 people, stuff like that. He said, if Mu'tawib were alive, Mu'tawib bin Adi were alive, and he just said a word, I would have freed them all for him.
Yeah, but that's not the one.
Yeah.
Rasulullah praised him a lot for the actions that he did. Okay? And we can praise a lot of people. There's a lot of people out there that they do actions. I mean, Putin, we praise when he opened the mosque that was closed for a while, he did a grand opening for one of the main big mosques. I could personally congratulate him. That doesn't mean I agree with everything he says. That means he's not a perfect person.
I agree. That wasn't dua. But I'll give you a separate example, which the Muslims may dua. It wasn't the Prophet Muhammad, but the Muslims in Abyssinia, when Najashi was under threat from his nephew, because his nephew was we talked about this I think on our first or second podcast. The nephew was going to overthrow Najashi, and his whole premise, one of his premises, his fighting things was these Muslims who are here, we're going to kick them out because we're going to be a pure Christian nation, right? And so the Muslims made dua for Najashi, and they did not know he was Muslim. He was a secret Muslim. The Prophet Muhammad knew that. They gave him that.
Time when they made dua?
Yeah, they did not.
Yeah.
They did not know.
Okay.
So it is okay, and we're not making dua for his religion. We're making dua for him to be successful in his endeavor. Look, he's championing the Palestinians, and there's nothing wrong. with
I mean, you could make the. I have a problem that.
I made the one that he should enter Jannah for those. I think that also necessarily implies. No, but that also implies, I guess, that Allah guides him.
Allah guides him, yeah.
Allah guides him to the truth.
Again, I don't think there should be any aversion to making dua for or praising.
Again, we're not really here to give fatwas numbers of scholars, but the only thing we do know is that if somebody does die as a non-believer, confirmed, we don't really make dua for them.
So people, by the way, this came up a lot when what's his name died? Chadwick. That guy, the Black Panther guy? The Black Panther guy.
Oh, no, very
Oh, Chadwick.
Remember when he died? A lot of Muslims, for some reason, just liked him a lot. And they were like, they were making dua for him. And a lot of people, like a lot of Salafi Muslims, were like, what are you guys doing? You guys are dumb. You can't make dua for these people. And he's the kafir. why are you showing such affinity to this guy? And I felt like the whole discussion was really overblown. I mean, you like somebody who died, you're making dua for him. Now, if he is truly a kafir, and we know he died on disbelief, as far as we know,
Yes.
you can't really make dua for that person to enter Jannah, can you?
No. But what kind of dua can you make for him then?
No, but you can appreciate. No.
We can appreciate him
No,
all we
but
want.
you. I remember this when I was in Boston at the time when Robin Williams died, right? And there's a whole scene.
We're gonna get a lot of comments on this because
No,
we're
look.
going into fake issues, but
Okay,
I think
No
it's pretty,
fatwas given.
okay. Look, I'm not. Look, when it comes to these things, whatever we say Islamically here, okay, you should go check with your local imam. There's people a bajillion times more knowledgeable than us. I'm maybe a very beginner.
you know what? Just imagine that this is our opinion, and if you guys know better,
Do better.
no, you can give us the correction,
Good
and
comment,
we'll
comment.
happily take it. Honestly, for us, we'll totally let you know. I'd rather follow the truth in all matters of fiqh and everything else. So if I do discover something is the correct, I switch. I have no problem with that. I have no affiliation with anybody. But as far as I know from what I've studied, we don't make dua for the deceased, especially the kafir, because there's no dua.
The Prophet Muhammad was told. Yeah, I mean, he was told when it came to Abu Talib died, right? And the Prophet actually made dua for him. He says, "I will make dua until Allah tells me to stop." And ask him to stop, basically, right? And then from then on, we know that we cannot. We're not allowed to make dua. That kind of dua. We can't ask for forgiveness and stuff for someone that we're not sure whether died on
I just
Islam.
want to ask you both of you. What dua do you make for the deceased?
You mean a Muslim? Or
And
not?
yeah, the dua is only.
All right, we're back. Mild technical error. But the short of it is this: yes, we don't give any fatwas here, and to our knowledge, there's no problem complimenting and saying good things about someone who is doing good things, right? Whether they're non-Muslim or Muslim doesn't matter. But if someone has died and we do not know a disbeliever, and to our knowledge, then we are not allowed to make dua for basically salvation and things of that.
I mean, you can remember them in a good way.
Yeah, that's
Well, the good things
Actually,
they did.
it's sunnah.
But you're not
It's
making
sunnah.
dua for Pharaoh, for example, right? I mean,
Yeah.
what's the
Yeah,
point?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's no point for dua because dua is only for salvation, so they don't make dua for it. Okay.
All right. Sonic, we're back again. Back number 2, but we'll spice this all together. hopefully.
We're having the same error, but inshallah, that even if the error comes, it seems like it's still recording, so it's okay.
Okay, so next thing I did want to talk about is what's going on in Syria. Briefly, look, I don't know much about this. Maybe you guys are more informed, but it's
I mean, the main thing we were discussing it because obviously it's a major event, but also like the Twitter space or the X space is completely full of people like being like, you're not really a true supporter if you believe one way, and you're not this if you believe another way.
But here's my dilemma. Here's the dilemma I have. Right? So, but Bashar al-Assad, this is not news to anybody that he is not the best of rulers. Okay? He's a dictator. He's committed multiple crimes and atrocities in the past. This is not news to anybody. This is known. Now, these freedom fighters, so-called, or whoever this resistance movement is.
They call them rebels. They call them what?
Yeah. There's a couple things, right? There's very nuanced, but one, they're backed by the United States, right? 2, they wear these logos and such that maybe they're ISIS type. Then there's these videos of maybe them beheading people or not.
Well, the beheading thing was
It's
it's a very old video.
Okay, it could be, but here's the thing. This is the dilemma, though. This is my problem. Generally speaking, yeah, we don't like dictatorship, and if they overthrow dictatorship and bring better rule, great. But are they going to bring better rule? And that's the question. I don't know. Because look what happened in other parts, Syria, Iraq, and stuff, right? When you basically just come in, dethrone the current dictator, whether he was a good dictator or not. Right now, there is some semblance of stability. What happens is you go in there and you support these rebel groups and you just dismantle the entire current government, and then what? Then it's just gonna be chaos. That's my
Yeah, I mean, there's a dialogue. But again, we do say that Bashar al-Assad was a terrible person. So there is a happiness in the ummah, but then there's this major skepticism because we've been heard before, right? Where people come, we're like, oh, these guys are doing it Islamically, when it might just be a power grab. It might be external powers making these moves, right? It might be, in fact, to weaken the state further for conquest by, other foreign powers. So there's so many things that happens that honestly, if somebody's skeptical of why this is taking place now versus before, or who's providing, because obviously these militia groups, by the way, you can't buy all this equipment from the black market at a very consistent pace, right? There's one thing taking over Aleppo. There's another thing controlling it, right? And controlling it means you still need a supply line, right? So which one of these foreign powers, Turkey, U.S., Israel, whatever, who is supplying them and why? And what are their intentions from doing this? What might be the militia group's intention for doing this? Because even the militia group, by the way, it's made of people, right? Some people are part of the group and they're doing it, they think they're doing it as Islamic cause. The leader might not be. For the leader, it might just be a power grab, right? He has no Islamic intention, right? He has no Islamic intention of implementing Sharia, implementing justice. Whether he does justice or not, it might just be a PR stunt, right? To gather support. So there's a lot of things, and that's why, you know what, I agree with the skepticism that we want to be happy because Muslim world is seeking something good to come out, right? So that's why whenever something happens, we grasp at essentially straws, right? Figure out, oh, this must be good. But then I think we should all keep a very heavy skepticism.
Take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Have some skepticism, and it's okay to make dua. And then, obviously, we know where Bashar al-Assad stands, but if this rebel militia is successful, then I make dua that they rule as good Muslims should rule.
But what is the success? They conquered one city, right?
So
what is the success metric?
So firstly, we're dealing with Hizb ut-Tahrir al-Sham. This is a rebel group that's HTS that's been there for a while, and they were actually initially linked with Al Qaeda. Apparently, Al Nusra Front. All of these are
apparently their leaders announced that was just
apparently, but we really don't know, right? What we do know is they were working. They were basically the moderate rebels, and they were being funded by the U.S. And if you look back at some of the articles from 2016, 2018, they actually sent letters to Israel on their 67th Independence Day saying, hey, we will, inshallah, celebrate the Israeli Independence Day at the Israeli embassy in Damascus one day, right? This is documented in the Times of Israel, by the way. So it's not some random news source. It's from their own sources. So there are Zionist connections, and there's many different ways to look at this. Ultimately, we don't know what's good, what's bad. There are videos right now coming from Aleppo about some Christian lady talking about how it's very peaceful right now. Nobody's harming anyone.
Because I trust the X News and stuff like that more.
This is on X, right?
Yeah, I know, but I trust the X, like local, like people say that we have family there. Again, you just have to take you look at their history, see who they are. But it seems like there's a couple people saying that we have family in Aleppo, right? And so far they've been treated wrong. Right.
So again, there's a video of a Christian lady in Aleppo, and she's talking to people, and she's showing how we don't have any issues, we have power. They put some curfew initially, but now they removed the curfew. Things look peaceful. Okay. So there's that. There are also other videos that are showing up that may just be propaganda. For example, there was a video shown of some beheading that happened that was fairly brutal, but apparently that's an old video. So there's a lot of misinformation out there too. The situation on the ground is hard to say. What we do know is Bashar is pretty bad, of course, right? We know people from Syria who have mentioned about their families that really suffered under Bashar al-Assad. Some of them are even potentially happy or calmly optimistic about what might happen.
What is the whole thing about the Russian involvement or pulling Russia into this war? Like, what is that about?
So Russia is supporting Bashar al-Assad, right? Okay. And they were heavily involved in the barrel bombs and all the brutality that happened that affected the Syrian population when the Syrian civil war was really happening. And now a strategy that is espoused, because you have to look at why it's happening right now. And it's happening in the context of a ceasefire in the Hezbollah-Israel conflict, in the Lebanon conflict. There's a 60-day ceasefire. Who knows what threat Biden had given to Netanyahu as to what will stop. Who knows what happened. But Netanyahu at least says that we need to regroup, we need to rearm, reestablish ourselves, because clearly they can't fight a war on two fronts, and that's a good sign. Arguably, they weren't able to destroy Hezbollah at all. But as soon as that happened,
they severely weakened Hezbollah.
Maybe not. We really don't know. They clearly were not able to defeat them enough because they had to call for a ceasefire, right? As soon as that happened, you can argue if these rebels are linked to the Zionist entity, immediately they sprung up into action, and now they're attacking they're trying to get to Damascus. And Hezbollah was with Assad, right? Hezbollah fighters, unfortunately, did kill a lot of Sunni Muslims during the Syrian civil war. Yeah. And now they will, if they join Assad in fighting the rebels, they might lose a lot of the credibility they got in the process, right? Of fighting for Palestine. A lot of Muslims now admired them or liked the fact that they were fighting against Israel and the Zionists. And now they have to fight fellow Muslims again. They might lose that credibility, lose that support, and so there's that. Ultimately, Israel is benefiting a lot from this because you're destabilizing a neighboring Muslim nation. You're destabilizing and tarnishing the reputation of Hezbollah. You're diverting resources and arms from the Lebanese front to now potentially.
It's also
Damascus.
actually I like that. It's always important to see whatever is happening is uncertain, but who is 100% for sure without a doubt benefiting, right? I don't see any way that Israel is not benefiting from this, right? I only see benefit from this. So yeah, we can at least see that. We can point it out that there's skepticism because we clearly see the people these Muslims were fighting against is the one that's benefiting the most.
Yeah, but we do have to recognize there are sectarian issues, right? So, for example, Afghanistan is celebrating this a lot. What's happened in Aleppo, the rebels have come back. But you can argue that there's a sectarian element to it because, like, okay, Sunnis are coming back now. The Alawite government and the Shias are now getting attacked and losing power in Syria. So, Wallahu a'lam, it's a complex situation. We just have to make dua that Allah Ta'ala, gives the best outcome for this.
Exactly. The Muslims hopefully have a net benefit at the end of all this, inshallah. But related to this, in a sense, not exactly, but when it comes to American foreign policy, wars and stuff, where does the Muslim American stand? I think about this all the time. We're American. I'm an American citizen. I was born here, love it here, want to live here. Just came back from Dubai, actually, not too long ago. Would not want to live there for the exact same reasons that this podcast that we're having would not be able to have over there. I can't go there, freely talk politics and stuff. I love this country, and I want and wish the best for this country. With that being said, what are the lines, right? I mean, I can obviously criticize the government. There's no problem there. I can be like, hey, you know what? I don't like the Americans in a bunch of wars and providing arms to people and supporting Zionism and doing, again, and it's not just me. It's not just Muslims have this dilemma, but many Americans do too. Many Americans don't like that we're supporting Israel. Many Americans didn't like the Vietnam War, right? Obviously, a lot of writing stuff happened in '67, stuff like that. So, with that said, where do we stand? And for me personally, I draw the line here, kind of in a sense. The Puritans, or the first pilgrims and stuff that came to America, came here for religious freedom. They want to be in the Church of England, whatever it was, right? Puritans, they wanted the pure Christianity back, right? And so I would say, for me, an obvious line, I wonder what you guys think of it, but obvious line is, I love this country and I make dua for this country. And this will continue, as far as I'm concerned, so long as I'm able to practice my religion freely. That's it. So long as I'm able to pray, fast, do all these things.
I think for me what it is like the idea of making America great again. I think any person who really loves America or wants the best for it would at least agree with that slogan. Now, what does it mean to make America great again? Obviously, the left disagrees with what the right, says on how to make America great again. And I think it's simply put as one thing. One thing is why America got here in the first place is justice, right? Justice meaning property rights. If you have property, the government is not seizing property. So, these things, these structures in place where you protect the rights of the citizens is what actually takes a country far, right? When you protect the citizens' right to intellectual property, you get innovation. When you protect the citizens' rights to property and wealth, you get that. Now, what we see in America slowly is that these protections that we've enjoyed, or America has enjoyed for a long time, are being taken away, right? You can see this in many, many ways, right? The right to free speech, the one thing that's obvious, is being taken away, right? X is now celebrated as a platform, at least by Elon Musk, right? Again, it's not that we're not arguing that X is a platform for complete free speech. It's not, right? because even X, I agree, it is there is a curtailing of conversations, right? Not everything is allowed. But why is that conversation happening in America? Is because people recognize free speech is under attack, right? So that's one thing, free speech is under attack, right? The other thing is inflation, right? People's wealth is under attack. Constantly, every single administration is talking about increasing the pay wage, right? The minimum wage, right? All these things. What that means is in America's economy, for the middle class, is going down. Capitalists will, capitalism means like the rich will get richer, right? It's just the way it works, right? But the middle class is under attack, right? Very heavily, and increasing the pay, minimum wage, doing all these things without tackling core issues of why this is happening, where this oligarchy of the ultimate wealthy are really pushing down the middle class. These things aren't discussion. So, and then the other thing is, right?
But how does that affect your opinion on wanting the best for
No,
America?
because this will determine how we vote to make America better, right?
But would you make dua for America? Like he said, he makes dua for America. What dua do you make?
I make dua, honestly, that America continues along the line of justice. I know right now we talk about this all the time, where America claims we're doing this for justice and for freedom, and we want, the reason we push democracy is we want the people's rights and human rights and this and that, and sometimes maybe we see elements of that. A lot of times in these wars and foreign policy, we don't.
Well, the war.
So I make dua that what America says it does, that it truly does stand for freedom, that it truly does protect human rights. It doesn't just, when it goes around, I know America first, and I'm on board with that to a great degree, but if you're gonna have a foreign policy that affects foreigners, it should be for justice, not just always personal gain, right? There has to be justice. We can't just step on everyone's necks and reach the top. That's not how this works. Everyone
No, I would say the simplest thing is I think with all this is being able to go to the police and getting a theft resolved, right? It used to be that way. I remember my uncle, he owns a jewelry shop, and he used to tell me that a long time ago something small was stolen, and he's in LA, right? They would arrest the guy. It was possible, like at his home, if stuff got stolen, they relied on the police. They felt like 100% of the police will respond, and they will get our stuff back. And now he got robbed for $50,000. They said he have insurance, right? It's fine. So,
listen,
that's the problem.
Listen, how do you feel about giving taxes here? Because you can argue that a lot of our taxes, a good chunk of them will go to Israel. They'll kill babies. They'll cause genocide. They'll cause oppression around the world. And we're giving taxes on everything. We sell. We give taxes. We die. We give taxes.
No. So I think the taxes are against the American. The reason America was created, right? The Civil War and everything else. They fought against 2%. How much was the tax?
It was a T-tax.
T-tax, right? Like 2% tax, right?
Oh, so it was no taxation without representation. That was the key thing. Now there is representation.
Yeah, but again, the idea is like the taxes gotten crazy. Forget the wars. The wars make me feel really bad about giving taxes, right?
But that's the biggest thing.
It's not even worse.
Misappropriation of funds. What hurts the most about fun is forget waste and all that. It doesn't hurt my soul when money is wasted. But you know what does hurt my soul is when my money, even if it's 1 cent on the dollar, goes towards injustice in general, especially the murder of fellow Muslims, right? That's when it hurts. And that's summer they talk about this. Like, oh, I'm not sure there's some folks in our family, green card holders, like, I don't know if I want to become a citizen, because if I become a citizen, that makes me complicit. I'm like, do I want to pay your taxes as a green card holder? Does that really change anything?
And you're giving taxes without representation.
Yeah, and then now basically you're doing all the things you don't want to do, and then give taxes towards maybe someone committing a genocide, but you're not getting any benefits of being in this country. So I find that ridiculous. But But that's the dilemma. It's not. I agree with you. The whole Make America Great said taxes, theft, this, that, the other. We can talk about whether America's going up or down, or this nation's trajectory. But when wanting the best for America means, I'm saying, as a Muslim particularly, not that applies for anybody. As a Muslim, I think, what affects our state?
I think a Muslim who wants best for America, it's not just for the Muslim. It'll genuinely be good for Americans people.
Oh no!
Right? That's my point. So I don't want to only focus on like foreign issues because most Americans are not being affected. Yes, they're being affected morally, right? But on the ground, there's a lot of things that are affecting America, and I think all those should be resolved. Like when I think of America great again, right? I think the prison system, it's terrible, right? I think there's a lot of things, right? Being against capital punishment, letting prisoners do repeat crimes, like all these things, which again, this is because liberal values have gotten us to this place where, what if that guy was innocent? We shouldn't kill him, right? Now he's committing repeat crimes. Like there's a lot of stuff that is making people lose confidence in the government, confidence in their neighbors, confidence in society, confidence in education, confidence in the social system, social security, right? Not in a single aspect of the American system, people have confidence anymore.
Yeah, I think it's important. I mean, that's really what it is. It's engaging at a local level, right? The foreign policy things, those are higher targets, but engaging at the local level, we can then start having change. And there's a lot of Islamic principles that can be implemented at the local level as well.
Yeah.
And the more you get people to align with you on that front, the more they'll start to agree with you on other things as well.
So are you telling me you're trying to bring Sharia law to America?
Actually, I think that's good for America.
Yeah.
There are elements that are already part of Sharia. I mean, if you look at the maqasid of the Sharia, the objectives of the Sharia, right? Most important things are like protection of family, protection of life,
protecting of lineage.
protection of lineage.
What does protection of lineage give you? Actually, it's good. You should pull it up while you're waiting for the maqasid, and we can just discuss that. Protecting of lineage. What that means is that the child knows who the father is.
Yeah.
Right? We don't need a paternity test or go to Howard Stern or like one of those shows to figure out who the father is and they get a whole show out of it. The child knows who the father is. It's very basic, right? Which means, what does that mean? When people engage in sex and intercourse, they're married. You know the child from that, right? You're protecting yourselves, right? You only engaging in these things in a relationship when you're married, which creates a strong family, a strong household. This is one thing that lineage.
All right, so
right?
there's 5, right? This is called the 5 necessities of Durriyat al-Khamsa, right? The 5 necessities. So 1 is preservation. This is ChatGPT, by the way, but it's pretty accurate. All right, so 1 is preservation of religion. 2, preservation of life. 3, preservation of intellect. 4, preservation of progeny / lineage, which you're talking about now. And 5th is preservation of wealth and property.
Okay, so 4 out of 5 of these is definitely protected in the U.S. So that means the U.S. is already, a lot of it is on Sharia law, which is protection of religion. We have that. Because we have the freedom to practice our faith. You can even give dawah, which is what you can't do in Dubai. Okay? You can give dawah on the streets here. There's preservation of life. So we are protected. Our lives are protected. We don't have any security threats largely. Listen, and then preservation of intellect, right? We can grow ourselves intellectually here. We don't have anybody that's shutting down our intellectual projects.
But you said 4 of the 5. Which one?
And then preservation of wealth and property. That's 100% insurance.
It's capitalistic.
No, but no.
4 out of 5. And then the last
That's
thing is
5 of
the
the 5.
protection of lineage, which you can argue maybe it's not the best.
No, but a lot of stuff's not the best. Protection of intellect, right? It's not the best.
Yeah, but a lot of these things aren't. I just wanted to question that. You're trying to make Sharia law. I'm just arguing a lot of things already exist.
I'm talking to our listeners, right? Like, let's say protection of intellect, right? This is something that's worth protecting. The idea of what a man is, what a woman is being shoved down our throats that is different than what we've always believed in, right? Sharia would give would recognize a woman is different than a man.
I genuinely feel if a lot of these MAGA Republicans really learned about what the Sharia is about, they would agree with me.
Okay, because here, so big picture thing. When people think about Sharia, right, they think about the had punishments, meaning when someone steals, you're gonna cut off their hand. Well, which we can talk about that. I think many of these things are very intelligent.
By the way, a lot of MAGA supporters want to bring back capital punishment.
Yeah, but
that's what it is.
That's one very small aspect of Sharia. Sharia law is literally the laws that I live by life by, basically, for the most part. It's basically coming to preservation of intellect. What is one big part of it? No drinking, no intoxicants. You don't want things that can alter your judgment, right? That's a part of preservation of intellect. Is removing. Here's the thing: this country, the Western world, recognizes the harms of alcohol. There's a region that has a whole prohibition.
And weed.
Yeah,
they're allowing everything.
They had the prohibition, right? What happened, right? And all the Chicago and stuff was a whole underground, liquor thing.
Speakeasies.
Right, but here's the thing. And I had this talks with, when I was in medical school and even when I was in residency and stuff, I spoke to people about this and I'm like, look, there's no denying it. If you removed alcohol completely, forget the social repercussions meeting people, it's a big part of their social life. Let's eliminate that for a second. They just love it, right? But if it was removed today, overnight from society, tomorrow, America or the world as a whole will be a much better place. There'll be less DUIs, less kills, less abuse. People are like, and you know, I mentioned this, there'll be less domestic abuse. I'm like, well, domestic abuse is a power thing. I agree.
I did this long time ago.
You're gonna be more likely to punch someone in the face if you're intoxicated than if you're not.
I did this long time ago. I don't know if it was an MCAT or not. But does the MCAT long time ago, did it have a written portion? Like answering a prompt?
Yeah.
There was a prompt.
There's a letter gravity.
Yeah, there was a prompt. And I remember, this was like when I was studying a long time ago, there was a prompt that basically said, is it better or not to prohibit like weed? Right?
Oh, the legalization.
Yeah, legalization of marijuana and stuff like that, right? And the you know, making it not illegal. The whole point was so that the police are freed up to investigate and tackle matters that are more pressing than just weed, right? That was the idea. It would free up the police force, right? It would free up the police force.
And they could tax it.
And they could tax it. So that was the thing. Oh, we could tax it, we could regulate it, now people won't be stealing, and there's all these benefits. And the police will be free. But the thing is, what are you ultimately doing? You're saying that basically we cannot take care of the situation. So we're going to go for a lesser America, where we allow it, but we're going to regulate it. You know what the thing is? This happened in, I remember like a couple of years ago, Guadalajara. Guadalajara now, if two people are having intercourse in the middle of a street, not a problem, right? Police have better things to do. Unless somebody reports it. Unless somebody is so disturbed by what's happening in the middle of the street, they're like, you know what, this is kind of bothering me, I'll report it. Then they'll come. A police could see something and just walk by it, not a problem, this is legal now. The only time they will do something about it is if somebody reports it. And they'll come and handle it. Why? And this was a big thing. Why? Oh, because it frees up the police to deal with things like murder and things like that. You know, this was happening so often that you know what, it was taking up police force time, right? So we'll just legalize it. This is ridiculous.
Was there also something like this when the Scandinavian countries about bestiality? They legalized it.
No, that was
I can't remember.
Oh yeah.
That was Denmark.
It was Denmark.
Yeah. They got so sad and lonely during COVID. They let people have bestiality relationships. Anyways, that's besides the point. But again, the whole point is that this idea of like us just being like, oh yeah, this is just a better way of doing things. You're basically taking America into a lower state where weed is okay now. Right? It's accepted. It's accepted. Everybody's now movie culture. Everybody's referencing it. Everybody's doing it. It's now part of your culture.
Everybody's now mediocre. They're doing weed. They're doing meth. Even a lot of people are doing.
Well, now weed is so common that they have.
It's a gateway drug.
Yeah, it's a gateway drug.
People enter that and then start smoking. They start doing alcohol. Do all kinds of. I see patients every day.
Actually,
I see patients every day. They'll have seizures because they use so much alcohol. Alcohol withdrawal too. They don't have epilepsy. They just get seizures because of alcohol withdrawal.
Delirium tremens, yeah.
Yeah, but they have it so frequently that they may as well be epileptics. I prescribe them seizure medicines, even though they're not epileptics, because they cannot get over their addiction of alcohol.
But that's the thing. That's the beautiful thing, right? If you think about it, would America, just forget like what you want, right? Would America be better with or without alcohol? Like, would it be a greater nation in the world with or without alcohol? Without alcohol. Would it be a greater nation without weed?
Look, I don't think there's anybody disagreeing with you.
No, but that's
Sharia.
Sharia. That's basically Sharia.
The thing is, look, in the 60s or even before, I think, alcohol was banned, right? There was a whole speakeasies and everything. People were doing black market alcohol sales. The issue was abolition didn't work for at least the US, okay? And you can argue in Islam it's abolition. You have to legally prohibit alcohol. It cannot be given, except for like non-Muslims who want to drink, they can do their own thing. For Muslims, you cannot permit sale of alcohol at all. However,
what you do in your own house is different.
What you do in your own house is different, but I think it also requires an element of warming up to this idea that alcohol will be banned. For example, when the ayat came about alcohol, right? Initially it was okay if you're going to use alcohol, don't lead the prayer, right? Because when you're confused, you might say something incorrect, right? And then it was mentioned there's no benefit to it or something, and then eventually it was banned. It was a gradual process. So the the Sahabis basically did.
Companions.
The companions, they slowly became accustomed to
Yeah,
that.
well,
and they agreed to
it was very gradual. Imagine a thing comes where don't pray intoxicated. If we're praying 5 times a day, that leaves very little time to get intoxicated, right? But there's more. You want more recent example? Smoking. This country wanted to stop smoking, and now everywhere, literally, you'll see a giant ad on the highway, this huge banner about Marlboro, whatever, Camel cigarettes, and right next to it, in equally large letters, it says "smoking kills." Like, you can't not put that.
No,
there.
but America's
Now-
done an amazing job. at
Now, I
cigarettes.
for example, I remember when I was young, we used to go to the bowling alley. This was in America. We used to go to the bowling alley, and I always left with a headache because everyone was smoking. There was so much smoking there. I remember this very clearly when I was young, right? And then with time, when they started doing the bans, public spaces, now you can't. Now there's even 25 feet from schools, 25 foot outside the mall, you can't smoke, right? Even airports, I was in Dubai. Dubai had a special little smoking room. You can't smoke outside the room, double doored, so you can't, no smoke
That was
outside.
it started.
Right? And I'm saying it works. Imagine every single ad you have to say smoking kills, and then you can't smoke here, can't smoke there, can't smoke here, you can't smoke anywhere, and now it's like, yeah, smoking is a lot less than it used to be. And it still blows my mind when I go to other countries, whether it's Canada, whatever, you see people smoking in like a lot more than you do here. I'm like, wow. Like America's, the whole process to, or it attacks the crap out of you, by the way. Cigarettes cost way more than they ever did before. So yeah, man, you make it unappealing. And it goes down.
And by the way, I always find this hilarious when they hear like Sharia law or something, right? It's a ridiculous thing to think about. Like, let's just say, forget Muslims. Let's say 51% of the United States voted and banned alcohol, and 49% were against the banning of alcohol. Do you think it will actually be banned? No. There'll be the same exact issue. 49% still want to drink. 51% suddenly say it's been banned. It's not really going to be banned, right? There's going to be all kinds of issues.
There has to be
right?
a plan
So,
that should be
no,
enact
but-
over
but-
like years.
But even Sharia law,
So
right?
we can
Look, as a U.S. citizen, if they give me a form for my city and say, hey, you want to ban alcohol? I'll say, yeah. Because that just aligns with my beliefs, right? But does that mean it's going to happen? No, because the only way it's going to get passed if majority of the people feel the same way I do, right?
But not just that, that's just a smart plan. Again, there was a prohibition.
I know.
They banned it
I'm
one
not
day,
saying that will
and
work.
it failed epically.
But the fear that somehow we will bring Sharia law, the only way we'll feel Sharia law is you, the listener, you, MAGA supporters, believe what I believe. Because then there'll be a majority vote and we'll pass it. But if you don't believe what I believe, why is there any fear of it passing? The system here of democracy, at least voting, is pretty strong. It's going to say that way.
Listen, this is an important discussion, though, which is, Yasser Ghazib talks about this, right? This whole concept of khilafah, people wanting to establish the caliphate. His argument is you guys haven't even thought about what's going to happen the day after you establish this caliphate. What are its laws really going to be? Specifically.
Well, then
are we going to
the
enact
benefits? That's just how it goes. Khilafah must be great. It's all amazing.
Yeah, but you have to think about this. When it comes to alcohol, for example, suddenly let's say there's a caliphate. Okay, people are used to drinking, whatever. Would you enact a law immediately to ban alcohol everywhere?
No.
Absolutely not.
Well, you will immediately get denounced. But all the people who are trying to get the caliphate, like, how dare you not ban alcohol on day one?
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Because it's unwise.
It's unwise. But the wisdom part is, escapes
Logic.
logic.
Yeah, but that's another interesting thing to know, because Yasser Qadhi also speaks about this. Where, okay, do Muslims actually want to bring Sharia law? I do. I think if America, I think if anyone follows Sharia law, they'll be better for it. Right? It's something I realized as a young Muslim when I was, why can't I eat pepperoni pizza? Why can't I drink? Why can't I have a girlfriend? Why can't all the things this society loves, pork, barbecues, hot dogs, I couldn't eat any of it. And I'm like, what the frick?
Yeah.
Right? No, I'm telling you. Right? No, seriously though. Look, it was tough. I'm saying being a young American growing up in public schools here, it was a constant question until I had the realization of this. Whether it's prayer, whether it's fasting, whether it's don't drink alcohol, whether it's brush your teeth, literally sunnah to brush your teeth, everything God has prescribed, anything I ask to do or not to do, is literally for my benefit. I am happier because of it. I'm not going to be happy because I get to go drink and dance at a club, or have a girlfriend, or sleep around, or have a bachelor life. No. I'm going to be happy because I followed the prescription God gave me to happiness.
There's this YouTube Dai guy, I think Hamza the lion guy in UK. He actually a lot of times when he's giving dawah, he says like he asks like, because he's given to a lot of white people because he's white himself, so people like to talk to him. And he's like, look, just tell me like all the problems in UK society, right? The stem, right? Alcohol, drugs, right? These are bad things that like ruin people's lives, right? Gambling, usury, interest, people get into crazy debt and stuff like that, right? And sexual promiscuity, right? STDs and all that stuff we get from all that, right? I forgot he mentioned something else, but these 5 things Islam will solve.
The problem is that requires people to be inward looking and
No.
self-reflecting. You know what they actually
But
do?
that's what Sharia will solve.
They blame everything, all the problems, on Muslims. There's too many Muslims in the UK.
Or
We need
immigrants.
we need to ban them. We need to take out the immigrants. They don't actually look at their actual problems, which have to do with own
Sure.
terror.
But I would say this. There's no denying. I'm not going to be like, they're bringing in the rapists, the bad hombres. I'm not saying that necessarily. Right? I'm not saying that. But I am saying, like, there's no doubt about I could imagine this. If you're going to have an influx of a lower socioeconomic class, people who are struggling, you're going to have an increase in crime. There has to be. I'm not going to say it's going to be a rate necessarily, but there'll be more gas.
You know, funny thing
There'll
is,
be more things like this. Of course.
America
It's
realizes this, right?
logical.
America realizes, like, okay, if you're in California, right, and you think of a Pakistani guy, okay, let's just say Silicon Valley, Pakistani guy, the guy is earning 100, 200, 300, 400,000, right? Like, whatever it is he's earning. He's an engineer. He's doing great. Really not a crime segment, right? They're fine. That same Pakistani population that came to America because they were all learned and they had, something to offer. They came here. That's how most Pakistanis come here are like that. Majority, I would say, right? Take Pakistanis in the UK, they're completely different, right? They're not. If you look
They're
at
the taxi drivers.
they're the taxi drivers.
Sure,
They're
shop
low
owners,
income.
yeah.
They're living in council housing, right? And what are they involved in? They're not working for Google and DoorDash. These companies, right? They're not working for these companies. Are doctors, right? They're just like living in bad areas. They have high crime rates in their neighborhoods. Why? It's not so much the people. It's as if the social economic situation, right? Same thing. Like, you go in different areas. Look, Mexicans. They have problem with Mexicans right here in America, right? Oh, that area, right? Mexico has really rich areas too, and the people who live there are Mexicans, and they're great people, and they're working, they're hardworking, and they themselves are looking at the bad neighborhoods to like stay away from that, and that's all in Mexico. Okay, in Mexico you have rich neighborhoods and poor neighborhoods, and they're all still Mexican.
Going back to solutions about what solutions Islam brings to society, think about Zakat, right? If you have 2.5% of everyone's standing wealth going to the lowest segment of society, you lift everyone up. And when you do that, you will improve crime.
Okay, and this is the beauty, and I mentioned this to you guys before, but I'll say it here in the podcast. The awesomest thing about Zakat is it taxes standing wealth. It's not like I earned 100K this year and I'm going to pay 2.5% of that, so that's what, $2,500 or something like that. No. It's the money you don't spend over a course of a year. So I usually pay mine in the last 10 nights of Ramadan. That's when I do my Zakat. So from Ramadan to Ramadan, which is about 360 days, a little bit less than a normal year. From Ramadan to Ramadan, if I have still, I don't know, let's say $10,000 in my account, the whole time, didn't spend it, didn't touch it, it stayed around the level, then you only pay the 2.5% on standing wealth. Wealth of just sitting in a bank account, sitting underneath your pillow, underneath your bed, buried on the ground. That is what you, there's other nuances here too, but that is what you pay off.
Let's say I have a startup, okay? Venture capitalists invested in my startup. They invested at $1 billion valuation. It never materialized because you never exited or sold the company. Will I pay Zakat on the unrealized value of my unicorn?
Google it.
Google. But no,
Shift GPT or Shift Gemini?
But typically, that's a beautiful thing. Typically, like your house, stuff like that, stuff that's like people say stock, anything that's liquid. Generalizing again, you can look this up like what is actually paid Zakat on, but typically it's stuff that's deemed liquid, right? That you easily sell and stuff like that. That is Zakatable. So what does that do?
So it's
For the average,
not like I have $1 million house. I'm not paying Zakat on the house because I'm living in it. I'm using it, right?
If it's investment property, you pay Zakat on the value of the house, or
no, but interesting. It's not tax,
I don't
right?
know, but
So like income tax, for instance, right? You could earn a bunch of money. spend a bunch of money that year, and at the end be like, oh crap, I don't have enough money in my account to pay my income tax because it's a rate on what you earn. No, it's not like that. I could earn a lot of money. I could be extremely wealthy.
Inshallah, you will,
Right?
brother. Don't
No,
worry.
let's just say you're a millionaire, right? You earn $1 million a year, but you spent the $1 million that year. You basically would pay zakat, less zakat than a guy who earned 100,000 that year, but next year he still had 10,000 in his bank account for 1 year. You'll pay.
That sounds
Essentially,
That's crazy.
Tax evasion.
You could be Elon Musk and pay less tax than me.
potentially, if you spend
When
all
I say tax, that means zakat.
Yeah,
Zakat than me.
but what does that do? That makes people who have loads of wealth not sit on it and put it back in the economy.
Yeah. What's the word? It promotes circulation of wealth. And where does zakat go? It goes from the highest earners, meaning people over Nisab. Nisab is a certain amount of money you have to have, where you're zakat eligible, where you have to pay it. So now it goes from the rich directly to the poor, and the money they're not using.
And so this speaks to a lot of those left guys and the people who are maybe on the right who are not doing so well. They're like, hey, what are we going to do? They still praise capitalism because Islam is okay with that. Islam is free market in the sense that, hey, if you want to sell it, go sell it. Of course, there's some government regulations just in America, in Islam. You want to make sure that people are not taking advantage of people in a famine, for instance. But other than that, it's a free market. Do what you want. Anyways, I think.
But actually, just one more point. I'm sorry for cutting you off,
Yeah.
but another thing people say is when they talk about Sharia law, these Muslims, even if you're a non-Muslim living in a Muslim country, they tax you the jizya. You gotta pay the jizya to be in a kafir tax. You know what's interesting? This kafir tax. One is less than zakat. At least the way it was instituted back then, it was less than zakat. And two is you don't have to fight in the wars. So if you are a non-Muslim living in the caliphate of back then, I mean, and by the way, you don't have to institute this, but if you're a non-Muslim living in caliphate of back then, one reason they would also tax you is because one, you don't pay zakat, so your taxes on them is less than the Muslim. One, as far as the religious taxes go, and two, you don't have to participate in the wars. You don't. So. So no, actually, it's better to be a non-Muslim in a Muslim country because you're not forced to participate in wars. You still get the benefits of protection, and you only have to pay the jizya tax, and you don't have to pay zakat. So, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the rulings in such an Islamic state is essentially does depend on your status, your belief. Right? If you're a Muslim, you have a different set of rules. If you are non-Muslim, you have a different set of rules. Now, the thing is, a lot of people will levy, the same criticism against Israel, saying, "Oh, they're a Jewish state." I think there's nothing wrong necessarily if they were a Jewish state. The problem is that they claim to be a liberal democracy, where everybody's equal under the law. That claim is a problem.
No, but even for someone, but the thing is, one dimension that you said they have different laws.
the human rights have to be.
No. So one thing to clarify is they don't have different laws in terms of if you kill somebody, what do we do, right? Do we do a lesser punishment because you're not Muslim, or where's the Muslim? No. The law, once you come to a Muslim court, it doesn't matter who you are in these kind of rulings, it's the same, right?
Yeah.
Now, what it does is...
It depends on whether it's public
No,
or not.
what-
There are certain things that Islam would allow your religious courts, your local community courts. So if you're a Jew living in Muslim lands, you would go to
No,
the
I'll
Jewish
tell
court.
you something very simple, right? Islamically, we have a very strict code of inheritance. Like, you can't bypass it, right? If you die, doesn't matter what your will says. Islamically, you see that noise?
Yeah.
Anyways, Islamically, whatever, it's a very strict. I think it's something in the neighborhood.
I think it's something to do with the AC.
Yeah.
You guys want to check on this?
No.
That's really weird.
That's fine. We can do it later.
Okay.
But the thing is, inheritance, for instance, right? Islam has a very strict inheritance policy, like how you give inheritance and stuff like that, right? But if you were a non-Muslim, you don't have to get inheritance that way, right? So when we say these different rulings, it's basically, hey, you're a Christian. You have a different faith. Why should you follow an Islamic law, right? When you're a Christian, you don't have to distribute inheritance that way. You can say that no, we'll do inheritance our own way, and Islam will be like, okay, we recognize that. You're a Christian, do it your way. Now the thing is, if you come to the Islamic courts, and the thing is, in Ottoman Empire and stuff, they had different courts. The Jews living there have their own courts.
Mughal Empire too.
The Christians have their own courts, right? The Muslims have their own courts, the main government, right? However, let's say a Christian comes and says, you know what? I think I'll get it better at the Muslim court. If you come to the Muslim court, you'll just be judged within the Muslim paradigm. But that was up to you, right?
But in the U.S. too, in a way, if you're getting divorced, you can choose to go to the court.
No.
You can go to this
you
court
choose
and,
to, yeah.
and you can get maybe 50%.
Actually, the arbitration stuff too. You can actually do arbitration.
Yeah, so there is leeway there, and there's obviously like a leeway. Even in America, there is a recognized leeway. So when we say different rulings, don't think of it as injustice because it honestly isn't. In a lot of these cases, it's not.
It allows for religious freedoms, basically.
Yeah.
That's religious freedom, to allow your own religion to, figure out your divorce laws or your inheritance laws or whatever.
But
That's
the
between
crimes won't have a different.
Yeah, I'm thinking, if you steal from somebody else and it becomes public, you can't just go into Walmart, steal it, and now it's like, well, I guess you're a Jew, so now you go to Jew. That doesn't work that way, right? So now you commit a public
No.
theft
So
or
what they actually did back then was, if let's say a Christian stole from a Christian in a Christian neighborhood, if that community wants to deal with it themselves,
they can choose to.
they can choose
Yeah.
to.
But now if you go to a Muslim court, you can choose to do that as well.
Now, if a Muslim steals from a Jew and they want to, then that becomes, if it's anything in
Right.
between, it goes to the Muslim court, right?
Actually, you know what's interesting is, so, give you one example that I found very fascinating was Jonathan Brown wrote a massive thread. I guess he has a paper on this as well, but he has a huge Twitter thread on sati, the Hindu practice of sati, right? And it talks about the Mughal Empire in India, that they would allow sati. Now, what is sati? Really, basically, if a woman was left a widow, a Hindu woman was left a widow, her husband died, then the right thing, the honorable thing for them to do, the woman to do, would be to, when they basically set the body and stuff on fire, she would set herself on fire. She would be burned on a funeral pyre, basically, right? So she would also be burned alive, and she would die with her dead husband, or join her dead husband, I should say. But now, of course, Islam, we don't do that, right? And so what the courts at that time would do is, they just all they wanted was this, that the woman should not be forced into it. Now, many of these young women, like a 17-year-old girl who got married, now she's widowed at the age of 16, 17, she has a whole life ahead of her. A lot of them didn't want, some of them did, some of them willingly wanted to. Others, it was like a peer pressure to do it, right? And a big part of the peer pressure was this: if they didn't, they would be shunned. They'd be shunned from their societies, their cultures. And I'm not saying the Hindu religion do as they please. And if someone doesn't do certain things, maybe they're shunned. Look, I get it. But what the Muslim courts didn't want is, they didn't want them to do it out of shunning or economic reasons or this and that. So they would provide for these widows, especially when they had children and stuff. They would tell them, hey, look, in order to do it, by the way, they would have to get permission from the court, right? And the court would give it. So normally it's a blanket yes, but they tell them this: okay, we got to make sure, one, you're sound mind. So you are deciding to join your husband on the funeral pyre. Are you of sound mind? Yes. Two, you're not doing this because you're pressured. By the way, if you fear that you're not going to get money for your kids because you'll be shunned from society, we're going to provide for you. We're going to provide for your kids. We'll take care of everything. Do you still want to do it? Trust me, you'll be taken care of for life. You and your kids won't go hungry. Even though
it's kind of weird.
And they did all this, and at the end, if she still says, yes, I want to do it, then go for it. Basically, Islam forbids suicide in the strongest of terms, because you go straight to hell, Islamically. You go straight to hell if you suicide. And they're like, you know what? It's your religious practice. You can do that, but there have some checks in place.
There's a lot of religious freedom.
But
I think
this reminds me of a.
I don't think you can proselytize as a non-Muslim, though. Like, you can't give dawah.
Street dawah, right?
You can't give dawah. Like, you can't preach a non-Muslim faith in Islamic lands. Is that correct? Or no?
Yeah.
Because, by the way, some of the greatest rabbis lived in Muslim lands. Moses, the Maimonides, Musa ibn Maimon, they call him.
Yeah, in Spain,
He was one of the biggest Jewish rabbis to this day. And he lived in Muslim lands, he learned Arabic, he spoke everything, and I'm sure he spread the knowledge about the faith too. So
go ahead and give your point, and then I want to talk about freedom of speech.
No, it was just remind me of, like, you know how, like, your wife's delivering or something, you go to the doctor, and the doctor tells the husband to leave the room, and then they ask the wife, like, okay, if you don't want him involved or whatever like that, right? It's kind of like doing a check to make sure that he's not forcing you to do this or anything like that.
I've done that many times. I've asked parents to leave a room. Like, a parent will come in with like a 19-year-old, a 20-year-old, and they'll be like, it'll be weird. And I'll ask, I say, look, I'm not saying this because I think you're a bad parent or you're abusing your child, but may I ask you to leave the room so I can talk to your son, daughter in private? And they usually would say yes, and then walk out. And I would ask the same questions, whether about sex or something, usually private topics. They don't want to speak about it in front of their parents. I'm like, I think this is an STD. You're 19 and you're telling me no, it's unlikely, right? So I'm talking in private, right? Stuff like that. And so it reminds me of that. But I actually wanted to talk about freedom of speech in general. This came up earlier too when we were talking about freedom of speech. Is America, like Americans, we freedom of speech is like, oh my God, freedom of speech is the golden rule. You can't stop me. Now we can debate how much freedom of speech there is when you say stuff against anti-Semitic things potentially or whatever, what is deemed anti-Semitic, right? Or you say something against LGBTQ, you don't call someone by the pronoun, things of this nature. Now, there's obviously a language police. I mean, Jordan Peterson's claim to fame was, I can choose to call you whatever I want. You told me to call you she, he, they, then she. I guess my freedom of speech. But here's the thing, in Islam, for example, one thing that you don't have freedom of speech in a theoretical Muslim country. I don't think there's a good caliphate out there today or any good Muslim rule, but in Islam, yeah, you can't go out and publicly preach Hinduism or Christianity, things of that nature. You could have your churches, you could have your Sunday mass, you can have everything. You can have your own courts, your own villages, own societies, no problem. But you can't go out and literally preach Christianity to the masses. I don't think that was typically allowed in Muslim, rules of the past, to my knowledge.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I mean, if a significant part of the identity of a citizen is based on their religion, then it makes sense for the state, which is of a certain religion, to not want people to convert to the other religion, right? Now, in Islam, you can't force people to become Muslim, right? You can't spread religion by the sword, per se. There can be incentives
To become Muslim,
right? But that doesn't mean you're forced to become a Muslim.
Yeah, I mean, I would say what's the fabric of the USA, right? Like, USA holds something sanctity, right? Like the flag or whatever it is. But when you declare yourself a citizen, you're taking some oaths, right? I'll protect this country, etc., etc., etc. Then what does treachery mean in the U.S., right? When I betray this country to, let's say, another country, right? I sell information. That's treachery, right? Now that's punishable by death.
Treason.
Right? It's treason, right? Essentially, for Islamic civilization, that bond between two people living in that same country is not nationalism or anything else like that. It's not because we were born on the same soil, right? The citizenship would be given to even people coming from far away, right? It was not because it was tied to the soil, necessarily. And treachery meant that when you came and pledged that I'll be part of the Ottoman Empire as a Muslim, was that Muslim link. Now, me denying my Muslimship now and going somewhere else, now I'm breaking that link. That's considered treachery, right? Now, the government can't trust you whether or not you're going to give information away, whatever it is, right? That was the rule back then. But that doesn't mean they forced you. What you could do is like, okay, I'm leaving. And now my allegiance is no longer to America, to Russia, let's say. Well, just pack your bags up and leave, right? Americans would say the same thing. Oh, you no longer will be loyal to America? No problem. Just pack up your bags and leave. Don't live in America and be not loyal to America.
People do this all the time. They denounce their citizenship and they go live in Mexico.
Yeah, but that's essentially the same thing that's happening in the Muslim Empire. When you leave Islam, you say, okay, I'm denouncing my citizenship. I am now leaving and I'll go live somewhere else. You're not going to make a big scene out of it. You're not going to start going on the streets to say, everybody come to Christianity or something.
Yeah, and for clarity, that doesn't mean that a 14-year-old who's like, I'm an atheist now, and he has some Pakistani parents or something like that, it doesn't mean that he's committed treason and now deserves capital punishment. Not the case.
Again, and all these things that they're always have to be carried out by the government, even like America, right?
There's no vigilante justice.
If I find some random guy on the street pledging, say I'm done with America, I'm going to Canada now. I'm not going to do some judicial extrajudicial rulings or actions on him, right? I'll be like, okay, this guy's leaving. If he's causing a chaos now, suddenly he's preaching against America while living in America. Dude, the American authorities will find him.
But the thing is, in America, you can preach against America while living in America. That's one of the biggest freedoms in America. It's the whole concept of being against a party.
Because
you can definitely.
You cannot incite violence.
You cannot incite violence.
There's a
violence is separate, right? You can still go railing out against America and be like,
Right,
hey, anything, right? That's one of the core parts of free speech. But that's what's being attacked.
Would you be allowed to? So, okay, I'm saying theoretically, from our knowledge, again, we're not scholars here, but do you think in an ideal Muslim society, country, nation, government, would the people be allowed to just blanket the way in this country just spew hatred towards the leader?
I don't know. I don't know enough history about it.
But that's not Islamic either. It's not Islamic or non-Islamic. That's just the way it is.
What do you mean?
It's not an Islamic ruling. Although they do say that don't what is it that
You should obey the leader generally if he's not.
you should obey the rule of law, right?
I actually think it's that. I genuinely think that being able to, I'm not saying you can't be critical of a person in power. You absolutely can be, and they were. But for example, Uthman, the third caliph, they literally, these youth, put him under house arrest in his own home, the caliph. And of course, he allowed it to happen. He could have removed him if he wanted to, but he allowed it to happen. But the point is, you can protest. There is a form of protest, but you can't go out and just blast, just blast someone, put someone on blast publicly. I don't think that's actually good for society. And actually, that's one reason why this country is so polarized. I would argue one reason. I'm not saying we should ban free speech. In fact, I think generally freedom of speech is good, but to be able just this, I guess we should say culture now we have in this country to just put a president on blast for no reason, just blabbing and saying, "Oh my God, look at President Biden's eating this kid's leg. He doesn't even know how to kiss a baby anymore." That's ridiculous. I'm not saying you can't say that. Again, it's free speech, blah blah blah. But see,
it does harm society.
I think it harms. Now it's so polarized. Biden can't do anything right. Trump can't do anything right. Now you lose the moderates. The moderates are all but gone. You're either left or you're right. Either super left or super right these days. There's nothing in the middle. And I think part of that is a jargon. The fact that you can just literally rip someone
the super left. I think we're going. I think we have a pretty good decision now. But the super left, super right. What if you're an American citizen? This is not going to a different topic, but I thought it was important to say that super left, super right. Right? What if you're an American citizen that's pro-abortion and pro-guns? Who do you vote for?
Trump.
No, you can't. No,
John.
Trump more.
What's his name?
But that's just one example.
John F. Kennedy's nephew, the guy who's in Trump's cabinet now.
JFK?
Yeah.
Okay.
People are against him becoming the health minister or something.
No.
They're like, oh, he's pro-abortion, by the way. He might be pro-gun, he might be Republican.
Well, let's say pro-abortion, pro-gun, pro-healthcare for all, pro-border, closing the border, right? You can't be that. You have to be one way or the other. Right? That's what the point, right? People who might have different opinions can't do their opinions because the U.S. is so polar. I remember like older political debates. There will be some times when they would have an issue and they would be like, yeah, we both agree on it. You don't see that now.
Yeah.
You don't see that at all.
No, you see it. You see it a lot. For Israel.
For Israel,
everyone.
Before we wrap up, I did want to, but I did Google one thing just to be factually correct. Is apparently Denmark did pass a law to ban bestiality in 2015.
No, I'll tell you what happened. So
I googled that. Couldn't
so
find
they banned it. By the way,
it.
they banned it. It was not like a super.
It barely passed.
They barely passed it. There's a lot of people protesting not to do it. By the way, not to pass it, but it passed. And then COVID happened. And then due to the concern for the mental health of the people by themselves alone in their houses, they allowed it again.
Or maybe they stopped prosecuting.
Which again, I find it so hilarious when comments saying that, oh, you Muslims, you are the goat abusers or whatever it is, right? Oh, you there, you guys have a relationship with the goats or whatever. Dude, this is the West's problem.
It's projection.
It's projection. It's complete projection, right? This is the West problem. We and I saw this funny. Like I find it funny. People are like, oh, the guys who are womanizers and stuff. Like, oh, we are the one people who are sleeping with so many women. They're not married. They have zero evidence of kids. I have evidence. I have 5 kids. Clearly, I have evidence that I had a relationship. You guys have zero evidence.
Yeah, there's no proof.
There's no proof. What are you guys talking about? It is such a ridiculousness each time that this happens. It's projection.
All right. Well, that's been good. And by the way, we kept talking so long. I don't know how long it's been, but that was a good discussion.
Don't clip that.
Yeah. But yeah, alhamdulillah, that was good. Glad to be back. Jazakallah khair for listening. Please like, subscribe. Our newsletter finally went out last time. Inshallah, we'll try to get that a bit more consistent. We'll have the links.
Yeah,
Barak
Live. Go
we should
ahead.
have the links in the description. But inshallah, we'll see you guys next week.
Let's go investigate that.